All right, welcome everybody around the world. Welcome to all my subscribers. So I'm going to try to make this as quick as I can for the sake of the viewers. I usually overtalk things. So, but I was either last night or the day before. I've lost track. But in the last couple of days, I had a pretty monumental dream, and I've had end days dreams about the end of the world since I was a young child. They're usually of a biblical type nature, and very infrequently during these end days dreams is there anything to do with aliens, UFOs, or the like. Um, in the last, so I've had the end days dream for maybe like 30 years or so. Now, in terms of an extraterrestrial UFO based element in the end days dream, only maybe half a dozen times, some between 5 and 10 times in the last 10 to 20 years. Um, the times that I've had this in the end days dream is like it's the same events that are transpiring, but I'm usually in a different place each time that I'm having the dream. So I see it from many perspectives, just for a bit of context. And in same fashion with this um, other version, you could say this extraterrestrial version. So in the last 10 or 20 years or so, towards the latter half of me having these end days dreams, there's been some times where it appears that there's an extraterrestrial event, such as an invasion or a great arrival. But never in my life have I ever seen, until the other day, never in my life until then had I ever seen an alien in my dream. Ever. Uh, Only seen UFOs maybe a couple times, and they were just, regular flying saucer type. Now, the last 10 or 20 years, like I said, when I have the end days dream, it's the end of the world and all of that. There's a certain feel to it and the things going on, very unique and poignant. But in the last 10 or 20 years, sometimes I'm in a country, and instead of the biblical type events that are transpiring, like meteors and the world darkness and such, it has an extraterrestrial element. And for whatever reason, it's in this one place. I don't know what country it is, but whenever I'm in that little city town type thing, which is like by the ocean or by the water, I have no clue where it is. But for whatever reason, whenever I'm in that place, it turns into the extraterrestrial version, you could say. Welcome, man. Oh, that's interesting to note. So tell me if you note any similarity with what I'm going to explain now. And again, I'll try to make it quick because I've got to go somewhere. But this little build-up is important, right? So I've been in this country place when I have the end days dream, like I said, 5 to 10 times in the last 10 to 20 years. But each time that I've had it, I never actually see the spaceship or spaceships themselves or any aliens. It always, what usually happens is they will start arriving in the sky, and by the time I look up, I will wake up. The most I'd ever seen until the other night was like maybe some lights way up in the sky, little tiny lights, and that's about it. So I had never seen. It was like I was being teased and tantalized with this ET invasion scenario a bunch of times, but I never actually got to see it occur. So the reason to me that this is more striking is that in the last day or two, whenever it was, and I had the dream, I actually saw the arrival. Like I witnessed it. I saw the giant mothership, battleship, whatever it is, and I literally saw the aliens. And one of the aliens came right up to my face, trying to either speak to me, but I think probably try to apprehend me. So I have a lot more detail to share this time. And for me, it's striking because, what reason would there be that I would get these teasers a few times and now it's like the big reveal? Um, I still woke up once I got confronted by that one alien that came to my face. I ran away, and that's when I ended up waking up. So I did see a lot more than I ever have before, but, who knows what happens after that in the dream sequence, right? So anyways, what occurred was I was in this country. I don't know where it is. It could be California for all I know. I'm not sure. It could be anywhere. Um, and I was on top of these buildings that are about 2 or 3 stories tall. It was like, I don't know what type of building it was. It could be a store, a restaurant, whatever. It doesn't matter. And there are these two buildings real close together. You could just walk over it. You don't even have to jump or make a leap or anything. Like, they connect. So it was kind of a large roof space, basically. And I was up off the ground. And as per the usual fashion, things start changing, things start happening. People start saying, oh, teach their own, whatever the case may be. Oh, they're coming. Oh, what's that up there? People are making remarks. And then all of a sudden the whole atmosphere changes, the social atmosphere, because everybody's starting to panic, right? So that occurred again. And that's like a deja vu for me in the dream. And I usually dream quite lucidly, and my dreams are always 100% real. And I always have all the senses, even pain. They're very lifelike dreams. So this time it started happening again. I'm up on the roof, and then I was just having my normal life, normal time, whatever I was doing there. And then all of a sudden people started making whatever remarks it was, oh, look up there, blah, blah, blah. So I look up, and then I will describe it, but I saw this gigantic UFO. And at that point right there in the dream, the deja vu struck me like a slap across the face. And I was like, I've gone through this before. And I was shocked and stunned, because it's now going a step further. I'm actually seeing the craft. Like, I'm not waking up at this point. I'm actually witnessing it. So it was daylight at the time. The world wasn't in darkness. And looking up in the sky, I don't know how high up it was, maybe half a mile, quarter mile, 1 mile. I'm not sure, thousands of feet, let's just say. Up in the sky was this massive UFO. The UFO was so huge, I can only estimate that it had to be like the size of a city. Okay? It was quite large. I would say at least a mile wide. It could have been miles wide. Depending on how high it was up in the sky, it could have been tens of miles wide. I don't know. But it was massive. Absolutely massive. There could have been more than one of these UFOs, but I was so focused on this one gigantic, mind-blowing UFO up in the sky above that I didn't really pay attention to anything else. There could have been, for all I know, hundreds of smaller or other UFOs flying around. I was oblivious to that, just focused on that one. Now, in quicker fashion, I'll try to describe the following. I didn't see the distinct outer perimeter and thus shape of the craft, so I cannot claim to know what shape the craft actually was. I do know that it was not a cylinder or cigar craft, and that it was not a round-based flying saucer or a spherical type craft. It was more abstract, or just a different shape. I think in retrospect, it was because there was like clouds or maybe water vapor and stuff. I was saying before, if the craft is coming down, because it's not going to be crashing down. If it was crashing down, there would have been fire billowing around it. That wasn't the case. But there was like atmospheric, turbulence or whatever around it, like mist, vapor, cloud, something like that. So it's kind of obscured, and I couldn't make out the outer perimeter total shape of it. Again, it was so huge as well. That played a factor. But all I can compare it to is roughly the shape of a manta ray. Manta rays don't really have like a, the head and neck like we have with airplanes, like commercial airplanes, fighter jets that we use. It was more just like, from what I saw, like a big, broad upper part and like a trailing end. So whether that was the shape of it, like a manta ray, which would be kind of cool, but I can't say for sure, but it doesn't really matter the shape. It was blinking massive. Okay, it was metallic looking. It wasn't bright and shiny silver or anything like that. It was perhaps darker metals. It was like a myriad or a mix of different metallic hues. It could also had shadow on it, but who cares, right? It wasn't bright and shiny and silver. I'm trying to make this sped up for the viewer. And it may have had lots of lights on it, but this one light that I did focus on was so huge and vibrant that I couldn't help but notice it. And it was basically like a long strip light that was like laser red that went across the width of, the broad part, like the underbelly of the manta ray from one fin tip to the other. It wasn't a dead straight line, had a slightly little slight, I can't say ornate, but it wasn't a dead straight line. In some places, a little bit different, but it was generally like a big red strip. So when I looked up, that's what I saw up there. Absolutely massive. And I didn't see it. It didn't like land on the earth or anything. It stayed up in the sky. But I was overwhelmed with emotions. It's the end of the world. What is happening? Alien invasion? Are they coming to take us? Are they good angels? Are they bad angels? Bad space beings, demons? What's going on? All this turmoil, chaos, anxiety, and everything inside. It was absolutely terrifying. Well, it's not as terrifying as some other end days dreams, but it's still terrifying in its own right. So that's only because I've experienced the other end days dreams for like 30 years. So I'm kind of used to it. But all these deja vu feelings are going through me because I've gone through this so many times before, but now it's gone a step further. I haven't woken up and I'm actually looking at the craft. And then out of the corner of my eye, I see some movement or I heard some noise, one of the two. Something got my attention. And I turned to my left and I saw, well, there was a person I'll mention first, an actual human, a person who I think was the only other person up on these roofs with me. And he was maybe about 100 or 200 feet away towards the edge of the other building's roof. And he was standing underneath this scaffolding that had been erected on the roof, right? So, and the scaffolding was about 20 feet high or something. And he was like standing underneath the bottom platform on the roof level. And so out of the corner of my eye, I just see these silvery shapes. Long story short, these were some of the aliens. And there was more than one type. So all of the aliens were humanoid. They were not human, but they were humanoid and they were roughly our size. They weren't much bigger. They weren't much smaller. They were about our size, between 5, 6.5 type feet, average human height range. And this first group of aliens that I saw, there's maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 of them, something like that, a small number of them, and they all look the same. They're all wearing this very bright, shiny silver, like color of liquid mercury type thing or polished aluminum style spacesuit. It wasn't like spandex, like form fitting all the way around. These beings also, they weren't huge muscular beings, kind of just more like an average person would be. They weren't like real skinny or frail either, just more like an average person in build. And because of their distance from me, at first, when I first noticed them, they were probably about 50 feet away from me or so. And then they started walking towards that guy who was on the other side under the scaffolding. So they got progressively further away from me to his distance. So I didn't get a super clear look at them, but I definitely saw the general look of the spacesuit, the general color of it. And it looked metallic, but it could just be a metallic color. I don't know. So that's what their bodies looked like. Their faces, the best I could see from the distance that I was, is that the face and head color matched the suit. So I got the impression it was like a whole body suit inclusive of a helmet. And, maybe it was the alien's actual head. I don't know, but probably not. And on, I think one of them at least, I saw what looked like, if you imagine dragonfly eyes, like these big compound eyes with like a reddish type hue. But I didn't get a good look at their face, and they walked off towards that guy and apprehended him. They weren't like attacking him or striking him with weapons of any sort, but it looked like they gathered around him or like apprehending him or something. It wasn't like they're having a conversation or anything else. And then right away, another alien came running. Well, I don't know if he ran. He might have walked quickly or whatever. It doesn't matter. But this other alien came running up to me. Now, this one here was totally different looking. Again, it was humanoid, about our height, about our build. But this one had on a green spacesuit. And it wasn't a solid color green all the way through, but sorry, I have an itch. It was like hues of green. I don't even think there is hues of yellow, but like hues of green, maybe lighter green in places, darker green in others, but not like dark green. But anyways, I don't need to get over complex. So green hues. And this one ran right up to my face. So I saw it face to face. Never in my life have I seen an alien in my dreams but this time I did, and this one was looking at me right in the face. And I don't think you could fairly call it a reptilian, because whatever planet or whatever it came from, they may not even have reptiles as we know it. But the closest thing on our Earth that it would resemble in terms of like category would be reptilian, I guess you could say. Um, like turtle or reptilian, something like that, right? But again, it didn't look like a turtle, a lizard, a snake, or anything like that. Just not at all. But it looked humanoid, had humanoid type face, but skull shape was different. Cheekbones, everything was different. The eyes were on the front, like binocular vision, like we have. It had like large-ish eyes, but they still just looked like eyes, and they weren't like big almond eyes or wrap around or on the side of the head. So it did not look human, but it was humanoid, quite humanoid, but clearly something totally different from us. And I'm pretty sure it didn't have a matching like helmet on that matched its suit color, but its suit color may perhaps have matched its skin tone. So I believe I was looking at its actual face and head, which didn't have a helmet on, pretty sure. And like lightish green, not like minty green or anything, but like a lighter green, not a dark green. And what else could I describe? The picture that I have, the thumbnail video for my video, I used AI to create all sorts of extraterrestrial, like photos, lifelike photos of extraterrestrials. And, I got maybe about 50 of them or 100 of them, and they all look completely different. It's pretty cool. And the alien that I saw didn't look like any of them. But the closest one I could find is the one for the thumbnail of this image. It just doesn't have the right skin tone for it. And the one in the thumbnail has more of a prominent nose than what I saw. But anyways, it's hard to describe it because I don't have a photograph of the actual creature that I saw, but quite humanoid, but definitely not human. I wouldn't even say reptilian, but greenish, maybe more prominent cheekbones. It didn't have like a nose like we do. It was like kind of like a hump. It might have had nostrils, I don't know, but it wasn't like a giant nose. It wasn't a real tiny nose, but it didn't have like a pointed nose like we do with like, flared nostrils and all of that. Ears, I wasn't paying attention to that. I don't know. It had no hair whatsoever. And, pretty much human, typical humanish type chin. The only thing that was markedly different about the head was just overall, it just didn't look human, but it was humanoid. But I would say like cheekbones and the nose and the eyes, those are the most different features that made it look completely different than human, and the green skin tone. And it walked right up to me and looked me right in the face, and it, I believe, went to apprehend me, just like those other beings were apprehending that guy. So I thought to myself, oh, hell no. And I hightailed it out of there, ran and hid in the bush in the distance. Unfortunately, by the time I got in the bush, I woke up. So that's where it ended. The other crazy realistic edge to this dream was right before I saw any of those aliens. So when I was looking at the giant spaceship and having the deja vu, it's like, okay, it's happening again, but now I'm actually seeing it happen in full. I pulled out my phone, and for the first time ever, I actually had my wife's legit phone number in my mind. I had to make a decision, split-second decision. Do I call my mom or my wife? Which one? If I only get a chance to make one phone call, who do I call? That level of realism to me, just like that's kind of interesting and mind-blowing, because I've never had that. I've had times where something bad happens, I need to call a family member, but in the dream, I usually can't remember what the real number is, and I struggle and this and that there. Typical of dreams. This one here was like, no, pull out my phone, consciously making a decision. Do I call my mom? Do I call my wife? I decided to call my wife, so I literally typed in her numbers. That's an extra level of realism that I haven't had before, and in conjunction with everything else, I mean, it just made it so real. Not that it didn't feel real to start with. All I can say is this: if it's either a bogus dream that doesn't mean anything, exciting to go through like an action adventure sci-fi movie, or maybe it's a vision somehow of something that's going to transpire on this earth. maybe God, the angels, or good aliens, or whatever, or maybe even some bad aliens are letting some people. It's not impossible, right? If they have the ability to travel between stars and whatnot, it's and certainly God and the angels would. But my point is, these type of beings, whatever class they are, would probably have the ability to give people glimpses of things, even if it's artificially created with like some super level AI that they have. And that's, how I could experience it, like I'm really there, like an alien VR experience or something. If you're talking about God and spirituality, maybe he was showing me a glimpse of the future, but I don't live in that country. I'm so poor I can't travel, so I highly doubt that I'm going to have any reason to be in another country somewhere, right? So, but it was just so real, and the way it was teased to me over the last 10, 20 years, and then I finally had this big reveal. That's what really strikes me as maybe there's something to this. And all I can say is that build up and finally seeing once and for all the giant craft that was in the sky, that was an awesome but very, frightening and intimidating feeling. And if it does occur on this earth, everybody's going to be feeling that feeling. And I don't know what they're like. They weren't attacking people and like eating them or shooting them or anything like that, but I didn't get a good vibe from what was happening. It seemed like they were coming and apprehending people. I would like to think that if for whatever reason these were some of God's angels, they may have just looked like that or whatever. That's not impossible because I didn't see them hurt anybody, and the one that came up to me didn't hurt me or anything or shoot at me. um, but I'm leaning towards, based on the vibe that I got, that it was negative. Could be wrong, but the vibe I got was that it was negative and that these beings were up to no good. So, if you want to talk about it in a non-religious context, potential alien invasion that I got a glimpse at. A lot of people have been talking about that it's in the books, and that certain alien races are just waiting to do this great reveal, and maybe I witnessed the great reveal. In a religious context, this very well could just be one of the things that transpire at the end of days. It would fit with things that are talked about in the Bible and Revelation. So it could go in either category. Um, I'm not a prophet. I have absolutely no clue if this is actually going to happen on this earth. But with all the UFOs flying around, I don't think it would be impossible. Um, but all I can say is it's cool and interesting at the same time as being dreadful, terrifying, and life changing, and potentially life ending. You know what I mean? It's just a crazy, bewildering spectacle that you have to see to understand and feel and comprehend. And all we can do is just sit here and wait and see if it actually does happen or not, because that's it. But I wanted to share the dream because that's a once in a lifetime type dream. And it's pretty cool that I got to see an alien face to face. Like he got right up to me like this. So, anyways, and he didn't look evil or anything. He didn't look like demonic and evil. That's another thing I didn't describe. Some might say he had kind of a gentleish looking face. It wasn't like menacing. A young child might think it's menacing, but um, yeah. So I have no clue what that means, but it's pretty interesting. I just wish people could see what I saw, because I can still visualize it all in my mind right now because it happened so recently. But I can't transmit my memories to other people, so you'll just have to imagine it yourselves. But anyways, take care, folks. I gotta go. Thank you all for coming by, and I will read the comments later, but I'm really late and I do have to go. If I'm any later, I'll get in trouble. So I always read the comments afterwards. I always rewatch my videos anyways for like a, not test run, whatever the word is. So anyways, take care, folks, and God bless.